When you think about Chinese food, do you think of fine dining? Probably not. In today's episode, we will talk about the first Chinese restaurant to ever receive 4 stars from the New York Times. Instead of Cantonese food, the restaurant mostly served Sichuanese and Shanghainese food, sweeping New Yorkers off their feet. My name is Christy, and this is the American Chinese Food Show. The chef that broke the glass ceiling was T.T. Wang. It was 1965. The war in Vietnam was escalating. The space race was in full swing. T.T. Wang had been working at a restaurant called Shun Lee in Upper West Side, but he had bigger dreams. He asked Michael Tong to be his business partner, and together they opened the Shun Lee Dynasty on 48th Street and 2nd Avenue. Tong said, before Shun Lee Dynasty, everything was old-fashioned Cantonese, what I called Brooklyn Chinese food. Peking duck was such a big deal that I remember every time one came out of the kitchen, we hit a big gong. Even the New York Times says Shun Lee Dynasty was considered the first to have a revolutionary impact on Chinese restaurants throughout the United States. Wow. Not only that, it was the first Chinese restaurant to be given 4 stars, the highest rating. Craig Claiborne, through his column in the Times, was providing a selective list of restaurants in New York and vicinity every Friday. The restaurants are rated on the basis 4 stars to none. The criterion is the food and the service in relation to the cost. He gave Shun Lee Dynasty 4 stars in the 1969 New York Times Guide to Dining Out in New York. Michael Tong recalled meeting Claiborne. I became friendly with a gentleman who regularly ate at our restaurant. I didn't understand how powerful he was. In those days, people who opened Chinese restaurants didn't read the Friday going out dining guide in the Times. One night, Claiborne said to me, "Michael, my book is coming out." I said, "Which book?" "The New York Times Dining Out Guide, and your restaurant's in there." He gave us 4 stars. How big a deal was it for a Chinese restaurant to get 4 stars? Pretty big. Only 7 restaurants in New York City got 4 stars that year. La Caravelle, Lafayette, La Gournue, Le Veau d'Or, Peter Luger, Côte Vadas, and Shun Lee Dynasty. Every restaurant was French, grand luxe dining, except for the steakhouse Peter Luger, and then Shun Lee Dynasty. Tong said they began averaging 500 people a night, and they only set 120 people. Shun Lei, means smooth sailing, and after the New York Times rating, it was indeed smooth sailing. So what made Claiborne give 4 stars? In his memoir he wrote, "On my first visit, it was, to my astonishment and pleasure, a wholly new concept in Chinese dining. It was light years removed from the standard egg roll and wash-you-up makeup of menus. The menu was daring and inspired. I came to know chicken song, or chicken and lettuce packages, marvelous dumplings called jiaozi, pon chicken, cold spiced eggplant, cold noodles with sesame sauce, and dozens of other delights." Let's take a look at the menu of the time. The sections are Chinese wines, appetizers, soups, noodles and fried rice, combination dinners, Chef Wang's specialties, Shun Lee's special dishes, a la carte dishes, desserts, and drinks. Everywhere in the menu, you see how T.T. Wang and Michael Tong try to distinguish themselves from Cantonese cuisine. They had to offer egg rolls because people loved it, but they also offered Shanghai-styled spring rolls. They avoided using the word chow mein and provided yangzhou fried rice, soup noodles, and pan-fried noodles instead. I could see how someone who's been only getting Cantonese food in Chinese restaurants find it delightful with Chef Wang's specialties. They put out many novelty dishes, almost like an experiment. Of course, some stuck and some didn't. On top of the specialty section, you see special meals cooked in imported chrysanthemum pot, 火锅, and Yunnan pot may be ordered in advance. This is very sophisticated for the 60s. Chrysanthemum pot is basically hot pot, but you add chrysanthemums before you start eating. It was very popular as an imperial dish in the late Qing dynasty. Michael Tong even did a special selling hot pot. This is one dish that many of my non-Chinese friends just can't fall in love with. Dipping raw food in boiling hot water, then immediately putting it in your mouth just doesn't sound very appetizing. Hot pot never made it big with American patrons, even though it's huge with Chinese today. Slippery chicken later had to change the name to pon pon chicken. Well, because slippery is just not something you want to associate your food with. But many dishes on the menu helped push forward the trend of non-Cantonese food and made it to takeout menus across the country in the following multiple decades. Beef in hoisin sauce, Sichuan beef, mo shu roll, mushu, kung pao chicken, mo po tofu, mapo tofu, Buddha delights, and many more. More importantly, the 4 stars that Shun Lee Dynasty got brought new respectability to Chinese food in New York City. It also helped promote the possibility of higher-end Chinese food outside of the cheap Chinatown and neighborhood settings. That's it for today's episode. If you like our content, subscribe to the channel. See you soon.